Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union, invested in you. If you're listening to this episode when it comes out, amazing to think that we're here towards the end of the year, Christmas week. You might be listening to this in July or August. It'll apply one way or another. But if you happen to be listening to this the week that it is coming out, hope you are enjoying your holiday season. Certainly grateful. Did a lot of talk about gratitude and gratitude episodes in November, working perfectly with Thanksgiving. I always feel that gratitude late in the year too, and reflect back on the past year and the people met or the connections and just all the good and the bad, and certainly my connections with everybody over at Chief of Staff Kansas City. I love talking about them. I'm in there at least once a month to their office to record a video that we put out with their president, Casey Wright. Just a great vibe in that office. So if you are looking for a job, if you're looking to hire someone, if you're looking for a resource, or whatever it might be, don't even need to drop my name. Just go check them out, chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. Along the way, I made a really cool connection, and I'll have to ask her about the details. All I remember was the pandemic, and we were speaking together virtually, and now kind of watched, I think, each other's careers a little bit, and just a really great perspective from my guest today. So on Rounding the Bases, we kicked mediocrity to the curb today with a guest who has redefined the concept of success. Her name is Tara Renze, an unapologetically authentic and perfectly flawed author, speaker, and EQ expert, empowering audiences to be who they came to be. Using her mantra as the mission, she's ignited a movement that unlocks purpose like you've never seen before, and is ready to show you the way to creating, owning, and evaluating your life to something that does more than sustain, but genuinely fulfills. I mean, I hear that right now, and I want to hire Tara to be a speaker. Here's my friend, Tara. How are you?
Hi, I am incredible. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show. What an honor.
Well,
I love chatting with you, Joel.
Well, it's fun to chat off camera, on podcast, whatever it might be. All right, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think we first did an event together in 2020. It was during the pandemic, right? We were all locked up in our homes.
It was with Scott Haven and gosh, what's his name? Dan over at Dan at why is it Sandler?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember. Oh my gosh. Dan Stalp, author, speaker in Overland Park, and I don't know, it was a different world back then. So
can you believe it? I mean, Sometimes I'm like, we were literally in Scooby-Doo La La Land at the time. I think we did it in like April 1st, 2020.
Oh my gosh. So we're talking about almost 5 years ago now, if you think about that. I mean, here we are.
Wild times.
2025. So a lot's changed, obviously, since then. I know that I won't bore everybody because this isn't necessarily a speaker's podcast, although I do like to have a lot of speakers on here because they're some of the best guests that I have. But the world has changed, certainly for everyone, and then definitely for speakers. How great, it's been a few years going now, but how great just to be back on stage, traveling and doing all the things of just getting in front of people. By the way, that's not a speaker's thing, just to be able to be around people.
Yes. It was a scary time during the pandemic of wondering, like, are we ever going to get together again? Will people gather? Will there be events and meetings? And, I am doing all my business online, presenting virtually. And there is it was so fun to get, people back together. Really, it happened kind of a couple years after we started coming back. And, I think that it really showed the power of connection and the importance of people coming together. Events are on the rise, people are attending, and there's just something really magical when we connect and we spend time working on ourselves in these, conferences or conventions or company meetings or whatever it might be. So it's definitely a really, sometimes I pinch myself. I'm like, this is my job? I get to do this? Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. And, I think like a lot of speakers, like almost every speaker, most of us did not start out our career saying, I'm going to be a speaker. There
Right.
are some, but generally there's a different path. Mine's different than most because mine is alongside of all the television stuff, and it came very late for me, but it was that awakening for me. It was that epiphany that, wait a minute, I could do more with what I have. A lot of times people take what they had and turn it into something else. Mine is kind of side by side, but I think yours is more common in the sense that you had this other life and then you ended up with this new life. And I've yet to hear a speaker that has made that transition into whatever it is, corporate world, into speaking, saying, boy, I really wish I could go back. It's not that people hated their previous jobs. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But I have yet to find a speaker that transitioned from corporate world or sort of the normal job, so to speak, into speaking without loving it. It's a change in life. Tell me about your journey with that.
It's interesting. I always say that everything that I have done in my life really was leading me to this path. I didn't know it at the time, but when I first went to the University of Kansas, I went on a theater and voice scholarship. So I was in the performing arts, comfortable being on stages. And a couple of years into it, I was like, gosh, I really don't think I want to perform for my life. So I ended up shifting and I went into sales and sales leadership. And, I did a ton of training, tons of speaking when I was in that realm, ran the national training program, did all kinds of talks. And so this was, it was kind of this natural transition of running trainings, being comfortable being in front of people. And then honestly, for me, it was just the Be Who You Came to Be message, which was a note that my grandmother wrote to my son 17 years ago. So this has been in the works for quite a while, but that message, this Be Who You Came to Be message, was so powerful for me, raising, my boys. And then I started, putting it into work with people I was working with friends. And, when this notion, when you tell someone to be who they came to be, I noticed it really fundamentally changes their self-regard and how they approach the most important things in their life. So once I had this, case study of like, oh my gosh, this message is for the masses. And I think any great speaker, any speaker they're really passionate about something they truly believe in. And that authenticity carries, from the stage to really, I know it sounds crazy, but change people's lives and inspire them to level up their life in whatever capacity the message is about.
Well, and that's where it becomes authentic because it's authentically yours, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just, I think that's what we're all doing. We're taking our expertise in whatever it is, and it's not, it could be in how to be a better salesperson or whatever, but generally it's something even more personal than that, right? For me, so much of it is building trust. Yes, I get to talk about baseball. Yes, it's the greatest job. But the success and the key to success is the relationships and the trust that is built. Then can you share that? For you, I think it's it's similar in terms of that passion too. Tell me about how that passion has grown. You referenced that your grandmother's letter. That makes it obviously incredibly personal. That's with you, every single moment. Now you get a chance to take that to the stage. Now you get a chance to have people come up to you and say, you know what, that really inspired me.
Yeah.
That's the greatest feeling to me. Tell me how that goes, how that plays for you.
Yeah. It's been so fun and so humbling, honestly, just to see the message and this Be Who You Came to Be become a movement with audiences and fans and followers who have been inspired by it. And, I started speaking just here locally in Kansas City, and then someone loved the message, and then they invited me to speak somewhere else. And that's kind of how a speaking business grows, is you just keep doing, I always say the more you speak, the more you speak. And, this year it was wild. I've done international events, so many different events here in the US, small events, virtual events. I just got a message. You were asking about the impact. I got a message. It was actually a virtual I did yesterday, and I haven't done a ton of virtuals this year, but I got this message from this woman, and she wrote, what did she write here? She said, you did such a great job. Thank you so much. The pit in my stomach that is typically there was not there this morning because I resonated so much with what you said. And so it's notes like this, right? You get those where you're like, gosh, someone out there listening, the impact that you can have it's truly extraordinary.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know if this furthers the discussion or not, but I'm lucky enough and very grateful that from a TV standpoint, you hear those types of things all the time, via social media, well, and some not so nice things too. But it's usually just like, hey, love your work, or hey, what a game, or whatever. And people are genuine about it. But really, you're just entertaining them, or you're bringing them something, that they enjoy. You're not necessarily teaching them or giving them an actionable takeaway. That's what we're trying to do when we get on stage. So to me, as nice as it is to hear from fans, and walking around town, especially after the Royals had a great season, people are so energized. It's amazing that there's like a feeling back here in Kansas City.
Yeah, there
those
is.
that live here know it, where everybody wants to talk about it now in the same way they talk about the Chiefs, or and that wasn't the case for a while, understandably, because they were losing. But it's just more personal when you're getting on stage from a standpoint of they brought you in to do this, and then you hear that response from people. So let's talk a little bit more about that message. And then, of course, I want to get into so much more, and emotional intelligence, I think, is incredibly important. I really want to dive into that. But tell me more just about this message. I mean, it seems so simple. Be who they came to be who you came to be. But yet I think we all make that much more difficult than it is. What do you think?
Yeah. It is, it's a simple, profound, thought-provoking, memorable sentence, but it is so much more than that, because I think so many people in this world, they wonder if they're enough. They wonder if they matter. They wonder if they make an impact. We wonder if we're on the right track, if we're doing what we should be. We get in all these comparison traps of, should I be doing this, or should I be doing that? Or they compare their lives to what they thought their lives would be, and all these things. And this notion of be who you came to be, when you think about it, it is incredibly empowering to think about yourself as a human, as an individual, and to think, I believe that all of us were born predestined to do extraordinary things. We all have our own authentic gifts, talents, passions, purpose, but we have to be willing to go all in on that and believe in ourselves beyond reason. And then the emotional intelligence standpoint of it is that we also have to be mentally fit enough to slay our self-sabotaging beliefs, which is truly the one thing that keeps anyone from reaching higher levels of success. It's not someone else. It's not someone holding you back. It's your own, saboteurs that you talk yourself out of greatness. You talk yourself into thinking that you're not worth it, or that you could never do it. And so, this Be Who You Came to Be message is about believing in yourself beyond reason. And really, I believe that this notion of being who we came to be is the highest form of emotional intelligence, because it is about self-regard. It's about self-actualization, interpersonal skills, empathy, all of those things that go into how do we feel about ourselves? Do we honor our emotions? And then do we give others the space to honor their emotions and to be who they came to be as well? So that's really, kind of the gist of the message. And I think when people understand that they're not their thoughts, that they actually have higher purpose in life, and they're talking themselves out of things, it's really transformational when people can grasp this notion of, understanding your thoughts, ideas, and emotions, and then choosing how you show up.
I love that, in part because it truly is a message that applies to everyone.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's one person in this world that has 100% mastered that. I think some are a lot better than others, but there are a lot of very successful people that still have those doubts, right? I mean, don't we all suffer from, we all have those voices. I mean, the brain is a very powerful thing. And so, at least for me, I sit there, we have perceptions of each other. I know that you talk about the comparison game. We could talk about that in a moment too, which is so dangerous, but I think it's human nature that the brain, I'm not an expert on how the brain works, other than the fact that it's extremely complicated and it takes us to places that we don't need to go. Is there something when you're getting on stage of being able to share a commonality that, hey, we're all dealing with this. This isn't just a one person.
Everyone, if you read about the most successful people in life, they will tell you that they struggle with their self-limiting beliefs. They have to remind themselves that they're worth it. And, they've actually done a lot of studies on the brain and our thoughts and kind of how we think. But the first one is that they found that 80% of your thoughts are negative, biased, and untrue, and also repetitive. So we tell ourselves the same stuff over and over and over. That's negative, that's biased, that's untrue. And it takes up 80% of our time. And I mean, anyone who's listening can think about their thoughts over the last 48 hours and how much stuff that you just made up. You know, it's where anxiety lives, is because we create these stories that are untrue for the future when we don't even really know what's going to happen. So we create all of these stories in our head. 80% of them are not true. But what they've also found is there's these two different parts of the brain that everyone has. And the back part of your brain is where all of your negative thoughts live, this 80%. And this back part of your brain is actually also where all your body produces stress and cortisol. So all the bad stuff is coming from you thinking, I'm not enough, I can't do this, all the negativity. But then they found that you have this frontal lobe of your brain where all of your positive thoughts live. And this is also where serotonin and dopamine are produced. But here's the coolest thing is if you can start to understand that you're not your thoughts. So I just say this, like, I've been studying this and I still go into rabbit holes. And sometimes I've been in rabbit holes for days and I'm suddenly like, oh shit, this is just a thought. This is not reality, Tara. But, you know, shake your head of like, no, this is just a thought. You can actually flip to the front part of your brain and be like, okay, that's a negative thought. Like, what's a positive thought? And you can get mentally fit enough to do this once you start to recognize that you're not your thoughts. And it's a really powerful, it's a powerful exercise and being mindful enough to understand that. And it does change the way people show up and the way they treat other people and the way they approach the most important things in their life.
I want to dig into this with one more question because I think anyone that's listening can relate to this. Now, maybe if you're listening, you're someone that has figured out how to harness those thoughts. You've figured out how to recognize the negative in the moment and go to the front lobe, as you've been talking about, frontal, and turn that positive around. What advice do you have? I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, and I am still a beginner, but I have found that some type of daily meditation when I wake up in the morning, even if it's short, sort of helps clean the slate, kind of helps set me in the right direction. And then, yes, the 10,000 thoughts are going to go through my head all day long, or I think it's more than that. And you do have to fight the negative ones. And sometimes the negative ones win.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have? I do find that when I'm able to turn that negative into a positive, boy, it just flushes right away and it's gone.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, we'll talk about in a second, that yours is not going to be for everyone either. And that's okay. Like, you didn't come here to please the masses and have everyone love you. But so I'm certified in emotional intelligence as well as something called positive intelligence. And there's this man, his name is Shirzad Shamin. He wrote this really interesting book called Positive Intelligence. And he was trying to figure out, how do we actually help people elevate their EQ, which is proven that we can do. You can't, no one's getting any smarter, right? You can't elevate your IQ, but you can elevate your emotional intelligence. And so he developed this study called Positive Intelligence. And if you just go Google Positive Intelligence Saboteur Assessment, you can take this free assessment. And what he's done is he has this assessment that you take, and then it identifies your top saboteurs, which are your self-sabotaging beliefs. Your judge, like, I'm a hyperachiever and a pleaser. And so now that I know this, it has also given me a lot of control of like, oh, this is the pleaser showing up. This is the hyperachiever showing up. And it's fascinating and it's so interesting. And the other thing is, when people understand that, like, they're not their thoughts, like, this is the saboteur that most likely some self-sabotaging belief that's maybe been with you since childhood. My brothers and I, we all took the saboteur assessment. We're all pleasers. And so we joke with my mom, we're like, gosh, you really must have done a number on us as kids, because we're all like overachiever pleasers. But it's really a really powerful thing. So I highly recommend your listeners go take the saboteur assessment and find out what are those self-sabotaging beliefs that show up consistently.
I just opened it in a tab, so I'm going to do it when we're done. If there were like 5 questions, I would try to do it while we were going.
So the assessment will take under 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how fast you take it. And then the results will come right to your inbox. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I could guarantee you that I'm going to be a pleaser too. And so you are constantly, by the way, not everybody listening is, but if you are, you're constantly trying to please, right? Yeah. How do you, as a pleaser yourself, how do you manage that?
Yeah. You know, the saboteur assessment, finding out that I'm a pleaser is it can be a really good thing, right? Because we want to make people happy. So from a sales, customer service, just as being a friend, you know, being someone, the people that you love, you know, we go above and beyond. But where it comes into foul play in your life is that you don't set boundaries. You have a hard time saying no to things. You take on things that you shouldn't be doing because you don't want to let someone down. where, it's so easy once you learn how to say no to things. I think this was for me when I realized, like, you don't have to say yes to everything. And just because you say no doesn't mean that someone's going to go, talk badly about you and not like you anymore.
Right.
And so for me, it's been really just a way of establishing good boundaries in my life and knowing what I say yes to and what I say no to. And then, the other thing is, we talked about, like, not everyone's going to like you. And I think as a pleaser, that's hard, right? I mean, one of our human needs is to be loved and to be accepted. But, there's a saying, like, even if you're the sweetest peach in the bunch, there's going to be someone who doesn't like peaches. And I use musicians in my talk about, what if musicians tried to write a song that was for everyone? Like, they were like, I'm going to write a song that I want every single person to love. Like, it's just not possible. So they have to write the music that's in their heart, knowing that they're going to have their raving fans and the people who love their music. And there's going to be people out there who don't like their music. And that doesn't mean that suddenly this person's a bad musician. It just means that they're not a fan. And so we really have to stay focused on pleasing the people that matter most to us and writing our lives, living our lives for our raving fans, and saying that, for some people, you're going to be too much, and there's going to be a whole group of people you're not going to be enough for. And then you're going to find your people, like the people who love you.
So good. And I don't know that it's ever a lesson that you completely master either, right? It's a constant evolving thing.
Yeah, it is. I have this hilarious, well, it wasn't a hilarious story when it happened, but you were saying it earlier, like, you put yourself out there and people love to give feedback, right? Like, good feedback, bad feedback. So we both are authors. We've written our books, and I'm so proud of my book. I get such great reviews. People message me saying, I loved your book or whatever. But, there was a day that I was searching on the internet and I was like, oh shit, 1 star. Like, someone gave me a 1-star review, 1 star. And here's what it said: this book was nothing new, no good advice, immediately put it in the Goodwill pile. And I was like, man, I guess she didn't like my book. Like, I even designed my book to be
Let me stop you
pretty.
Let me stop you real quick. I'm going to guess, even with your expertise, even with your ability to shift negative to positive, I'm sure that first thought wasn't great, was it?
Oh God. I mean, this review kept me up at night. I was like, 1 star, threw it in the Goodwill. Like, geez, Louise. And then it pisses you off, right? Because you're like, the fact that this person took the time to go online and leave me a 1-star review. But Joel, you're never going to believe what happened. Months went by and I get this message on Instagram from this gal. I have no idea who she is. And she has my book. She's holding it and she's sitting in her car. She's like, look what found me today. I found your book. And she said, I found this book. I felt like it was speaking to me. I'm losing my heart. I need to read this book or whatever. We went back and forth a little bit. I'm like, well, where'd you find the book? And she's like, Goodwill.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and then she wrote, I hope the location isn't disheartening. And I was like, girl, you don't even know how much this means to me. But it was my own lesson in, like, there's going to be people out there who just don't like you, and then they will go publicly to tell other people, like, this was not for me, 1 star. Find your raving fans, find those people who need your message and who love what you're doing and, want to celebrate you and want you to win. And I think, we've seen in our world just over the last week how divisive people can be. And we just have to surround ourselves with people who lead with love.
I really struggle to ever write anybody, a restaurant or whatever it is, a negative review. An Uber driver, it's like, if the Uber driver wasn't good, I don't want to give them 5 stars, but if you give them 3, they're worth 3, then they need a reason why. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that to them. So I just don't do anything. And it's like, look, if they were terrible and you were like screaming to get out of the car, or your food was whatever happened to it and they didn't care, then okay, fine. Then maybe, it's worth telling people that. But for the most part, people do have bad days. I don't know. I'm
with you.
It's not a karma thing. It feels like it a little bit to me. Karma to me, though, is like, just, I don't know, it's more golden rule type of stuff. Treat people the way you'd want to be treated. I'd like a little grace when I have a bad day too.
Right.
But the world's a hard place, especially with how easy those pot shots are on social media. Before I get to the baseball theme questions, let's go there real quick. How do you deal with the social media piece? Just like you see that 1-star review. Look, we're human. If we're posting on social media, I'd like to think I have this figured out better than, the teenagers or the kids that are living for that recognition, for that instant feedback. But I still look. I'm curious to see how many people saw it, or did it affect people. I want to know that it made an impact or not. It's part of this Pandora's box of social media. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Social media, I have a love-hate relationship with
Same.
it. I'm on Instagram a lot. I do LinkedIn. I'm not really on Facebook anymore because it's been so divisive.
No.
But I call it Instaglam and fake book because it's just everyone's highlight reels, right? Everyone's putting their best stuff out there, and that's what we compare ourselves. We're like, oh wow, the perfect house, the amazing marriage, the great kids, like the accolades, all the things, right? I mean, nobody's posting, all their 1-star reviews on Instagram and Facebook. But I think for me, it goes back to my be who you came to be message. And anytime we're comparing, it's like, you didn't come to be them. Like, you didn't come to be more like someone you're seeing on the internet. Like, you came to be you. And you have to know that anyone, kind of like what you said, that goes out of their way to put something mean or hateful or derogatory or something on the internet about you, they're a hurt person. And like, that's just not normal, positive human behavior to do that. And so, I mean, I try to ignore it, but you like you said, like, no matter what, like, we're only human, and those messages do hurt. So I'm lucky. People don't come after me, for the most part. Like, occasionally I'll get someone, but it's usually if I've left a comment somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or like they reply to my comment and then I'm like, oh my God, I didn't mean like that. I just delete the comment because I'm like, I can't even do this. I'm not going to get in an argument with someone on social media, but it's like Wild West out there.
It is. I've just found that for years now, what I decided was, and for the people really aren't that mean. I think, well, it's gotten worse, but if I see someone commenting on my stuff, or if I see someone reaching out, and it literally, I don't know why I just use the word literally. I hate that word. It's overused, but it has no value to me. If the comment has no value to me, or it's just a waste of my time, my mental, the headspace, I just mute them. I don't need to block them. If it's derogatory, if it's dangerous, then yes, I'm going to block them and maybe, but otherwise, I don't need to see it. I don't. I got enough other stuff going on. And I tell my wife all the time that if you see something that is concerning, if you see something that we should be concerned about, then let me know and we'll deal with it. Otherwise, it's just people venting, and it's an easy target to vent at someone. I can't imagine doing that myself, but it's an easy target to vent at someone when you don't put your face. The face is rarely on there. The name is rarely on there.
Right. Well, and I've read this, that, people are like, successful people are not tearing other people down. People who are winning are not going around tearing other people down. People who, it's just like, look up, like, never look down, like, look up and find your inspiration from there. Because the people who are doing that, like you said, I mean, everyone's entitled to a bad day. You're not entitled to give someone else a bad day. No. And I feel bad for our kids for social media. I've got teenagers and I see just how reckless people can be and just how awful people can be. So I think, it goes back to just raising good humans and doing the right thing. And what did I read? That, I mean, it's like this, your perception is your reality. So
I love all this. It's all empowering. By the way, if anyone wants more, and we'll have it in the show notes, Tara's website, beyond her speaking and the books and videos, but on there, and you can sign up for newsletters, Tara's tips, and it's a lot of good, insightful stuff like you're hearing right now, really embodying the message of being yourself. You came to be you, and there's a lot of really good stuff, positivity, emotional intelligence, and all of that. And so I love getting those in my inbox and have my Tara's tips right here in front of me. Stop comparing, start admiring. And again, I think that's something that we all could benefit from. Let's get to the baseball themed questions. In your career, what's the biggest home run that you've hit?
I would definitely say the book. I feel like you've authored a book. I've done a book and a children's book. Mm-hmm. I'm working on another project that I'm not going to talk about because it's not even close to being baked yet. But the book was just, I can't even really put it into words. I always wanted to write a book. And you start writing the book and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be in print. Like, is this a truth for me? And I think it really made me evaluate my message and what I fundamentally believe and what I would be completely fine leaving for the world and for everyone once I transcend to the next lifetime. I mean, it is there. And I self-published it twice, and now I'm actually republishing second edition with a publishing house. And I'm I'm so dang proud of that book, and I love it. And so I think for me, that book was, it's just my heart. And I don't know, you've published a book. It's kind of hard to say like what it's not. And it's not about like, ooh, look at me, I'm an author. It's really about the message of the book for me. And I'm just dang proud of it.
Yeah, you should be. And it's now I'm speaking a little out of turn here because I don't know what this feels like, but at least for me, from the guy's standpoint, when it came out, it's like, wow, I feel like I just birthed a child. Now that's
It's true.
That's one
Yes,
of the dumbest
it
things
is.
I've
Like you
ever
bring this
said.
thing to life.
Because this is where you're supposed to tell me, and what my wife would say, you have no idea what that feels like. So it's the closest that I got. Really the closest I got was watching my two kids born. But it's a weird thing because suddenly you have this thing that comes into existence. No, it's not alive, but there it is on the pages with your name on it. And it's just for me, it's a surreal thing. It was a surreal thing, with number 2 coming out very soon. But can't wait to hear about that next project. Won't push you on that one, by the way, if you're interested in Tara's books. I want to talk about the children's book after these questions, but you can find it on her website as well, and certainly Amazon and all of that. What's the biggest swing and miss you've taken, and what have you learned from it?
So before the pandemic, I had another business, and I had a business partner who is still a near and dear friend of mine. And I think it was, we lost the business because of the pandemic, just the circumstances of some sponsors that we had, and we were doing events, and then obviously we were not doing events, and the sponsorships got dropped, and we tried to move online, and everyone was so annoyed with being online. It was like they didn't want another place to go, and so we ended up closing that business. And that hurt. I'd put a lot of money into the business. Not that I really cared about the money. It was just the sadness of like, I thought, this baby was ready, but I do have this theory that it not working out always works out. That's kind of a simple, strange thing, but it not working out always works out. And I can't think of one thing in my life that didn't work out that ended up somehow leading me to the next thing. And the book, I wouldn't have written the book if that business hadn't collapsed, 6 months into the pandemic. And so I just, I learned so many things from it, but it not working out always works out. It really does.
I love that. Somehow, some way, it always does. Okay, what is small ball? The little things that add up to big results.
Tenacity. I think that so many of us think that success is an overnight thing, and it's just not. I've been, like I said before, like everything I've done in my life has led to my speaking business and getting hired to, hop on stages across the US and internationally. And it takes time. Like you have to be willing to be patient and to know that it's going to grow, and that your early stuff is not going to be great, and you're going to continue to level up your message and get more confident, or whatever it is, your business. Like it just takes time, and it takes tenacity. And I don't think you have to climb Mount Everest every day. I don't think you need to push. I think you have to really have your priorities straight. For me, it was always that, hey, I am a mom and I am a wife first. And that is the roles that I care most about. And so I wasn't in a hurry to get out and like go on, 10, 20, 30, 50, hundreds. There's speakers who do hundreds of stages a year. And I just think it was just being patient and honoring what mattered most to me. Then that is who I came to be. And I can authentically speak about that. So give yourself grace and patience, and know that it takes as long as it takes.
Fantastic advice. So let me hit you with 4 final questions as we round the bases. And the first one I referenced before: your previous life and your previous career. Sales leader of the year while you were at careerbuilder.com. I'm assuming everything was going very well. You had a very successful previous life in business. But I'm curious, because you take what you learned from that and you apply it to what you're doing now. But I'm curious now what you've learned from this, what you would have gone back and applied to then. What do you know now that you didn't know then?
That's a great question. I think, I was young. I was a young sales leader. I was young in sales. I think, mostly as a leader, it would go back to really honoring the authenticity and figuring out how to lead people the way they want to be led. And, work, knowing that it kind of like, I use it in my, I have some workshops about 10 secrets to level up your leadership. And, I use sports as an example of like, I'm a huge KU basketball fan, and I think about Bill Self and how, yes, he's the leader of the team, but it's the team that matters, and they play for the fans. and really just thinking of more holistic, but then also like how Bill Self coaches each player differently. And I think if I would have known more about that when I was in sales and sales leadership, like, we wouldn't have just been sales leader of the year one year. We would have done it over and over and over, because we came in second or third several times. But I think that, honoring our authenticity and honoring others' authenticity, I think is really, really important.
That's good stuff. Okay, then the second question, we'll just transition right in. I saw this. I know you've got, a couple boys and a couple dogs. So if we're talking about true love of the Jayhawks in basketball, is one of your dogs named Fog?
Yes, his name is Fog Allen. He's the sweetest boy.
Oh,
but yes,
middle name Allen?
Of course. And he wears a collar that says Mr. Fogg, and he has a jersey that he wears on game days. So he doesn't really love the jersey, but it works. So we won the national championship the year we got him. And and isn't Fog is a great name for a dog, whether it's a big dog or a little dog. Like if you're a Jayhawk, I highly recommend you name your dog Fog.
I wonder how many people over the years or back in the 80s named their dog like Danny or Manning or Miracle.
Oh, they did. For sure.
And then more recently, maybe like Mario or Chalmers. There got to be some Chalmers dogs out there.
Oh, there totally are. For sure.
It's by the way, if you're listening and you're not a KU fan and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear about these guys, I get it. I did not grow up a KU fan, but now having one of my kids attend there, I'm all in.
It's always a great day to be a Jayhawk.
I'm part of the
even during a very losing football season.
Yeah. As long as
that's a whole other conversation, Joel.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But the basketball thing is kind of a cult, and somehow I've joined that, and it's a fun place.
Good. Welcome.
There's nothing like being in the field house there.
Oh, Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, that's like the ultimate form of camaraderie. Scott, my husband, he took the boys, my teenage boys, a couple weeks ago, and he was like, maybe I'm just getting old. He's like, but damn, it is really loud in there. He's like, I think it's louder now than ever. And he's like, I might have to bring earplugs. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to be so embarrassed. I just told that. But he's like, and the boys were like, it is so loud.
Well, Scott, if it makes you feel better, if you're listening to this, I'm right there with you. Although I didn't think it was too loud, in part because I think I might finally be starting to lose my hearing, but I thought it was too hot in there. But maybe that means that I'm still young because, as I get older, I'll put on a winter coat while I'm in there. It does get a little bit hot, but it's all worth it.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Truly a great experience. I'll stand by Scott on that one because, somebody's got to support him, and I'm going to be that guy. All right, third question. Speaking of family, as we round the bases, and we talked about your grandmother, the book, and also the children's book. Very cute, by the way, and you could also see that on the website and purchase that. Be Who You Came to Be, but the B is BEE, like a bumblebee. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of the children's book too. I co-authored that book with my mom, and my mom spent her life. She has her master's degree in early childhood education. So she really knew like the things that needed to go into this book. And we hatched it together and wrote the book together. And it was so fun, but it's about a little bumblebee named Phoebe. And she's trying to figure out what type of bee she's supposed to be. And she tries to be a sweat bee and a miner bee and all these different bees, carpenter bee. And she just is failing at all of them and she can't figure it out. But along the way, she finds her authentic gift. And it's such a sweet book for kids to teach them to honor their authenticity and to really find, what's important to them. So we're so proud of the book. And so there's different characters that we named after family members. Like there's Herbie, who was my grandfather, and then Bobby was my other grandfather. So it was just so fun to write that book with my mom. I'm really proud of it. Kids love it. It comes with a little sticker book and a map. And it's a great book for kids.
All right, check that out on the website as well. Here is the walk-off, the final question. I know when you and I think right as the baseball season was ending, or maybe the playoffs were still going, I don't remember. We went out for coffee, and you had been overseas speaking, which I know really was a big deal for you to be able to go international. It's just, I think it's another step, plus to be able to see the world and travel. I don't remember, where was that? And if you had a number one destination around the world that you would love to speak, someone's listening right now, they go, we will bring Tara in and fly her and her family to fill in the blank. Where would that be?
Oh my gosh. I was in Munich.
That's right.
And it happened to coincide with Oktoberfest. So
Yeah,
my
that's
husband
right.
snipped that out real fast, was like, and I'll be going with you. And we will be going to Oktoberfest, which is so fun. I highly recommend that if you need a bucket list of something to do. Like, it's so fun. Gosh, where would I want to speak? That's a really, really good question. You know, right now, I really have my heart set on speaking in London, and I would love to take my kids there. I think it's nice because it's English, right? They speak the same language. When I was in Munich, the crowd, 2/3 of them, we were translating into Hungarian and into German, which was a whole different experience. And you deliver a little differently too, because you have to leave the colloquialisms and all the things off. But I did get a standing ovation, Joel, which was like apparently unheard of when you speak overseas.
Yeah,
So
that's really cool.
I think Dubai obviously would be cool just because
Mhm.
it's such a big, city for conventions and like all the crazy stuff going on over there. I love traveling, so
Same.
if you want, like, just message me. I'll pretty much go anywhere.
Yeah. Um, I'm happy to go along if they want a speech on trust as well. And
Exactly. We should come up with our own road show.
road show. We could let's make sure there's an Oktoberfest there, because I think Scott will be happy. I know Susan will be happy as well. And we'll
Yes.
take this thing on the road. I did a brief thing in Bogota, Colombia last year for an organization, and that with a translator, by the way. That was extremely intimidating. I did the first 30 to 45 seconds in Spanish, trying to rehearse what I wanted to say, and still got it wrong. So they laughed at me, but also clapped because they appreciated the effort. That's the most nervous I've been on stage in years, but extremely gratifying. So wherever those journeys take you, I wish you the best. And
hey, you too. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I've been a big fan of you, both, what you're doing with your speaking business, and always getting to hear you, with the Royals and our beloved Royals, who have just, it's team near and dear to my heart. So
well, then
keep
go on.
shining, Joel.
Then go on to Instagram and say really nice things and give me a thumbs up so that I feel better about myself. I'm just kidding.
I will. No 1-star reviews for you. All five stars.
Or send it to Goodwill and tell somebody to go pick it up. And
yeah, we could just recreate the whole thing for you.
Right? It'll be we could reenact the whole thing, a TV reenactment. Someone's trash, someone's treasure.
Exactly.
It all worked out really well. Tara, thanks so much. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Joel. Have a very Merry Christmas to all of the listeners.
For those that are listening, the day this comes out, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and thanks, Tara.
Bye.
It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.